All right, do you remember when more than 50 former intelligence officials were quick to call the Hunter Biden laptop story Russian disinformation? Well, the truth is finally coming to light thanks to a joint Republican investigation. And now President Biden's younger brother, Jim, he's under their microscope, too. Our congressional correspondent, Kilmany Dukart, has the latest from Capitol Hill. Kilmany.
Sean, Lindsay, Republican Senators Chuck Grassley and Ron Johnson started their investigation nearly 3 years ago, but just this week unveiled exclusive documents showing James Biden's company, the Lion Hall Group, receiving large bank transfers from a Chinese consulting firm. According to this 2018 bank statement, transactions show incoming wires from CEFC, which Grassley says is effectively an arm of the Chinese government. Payments that Grassley says were to assist these related companies with finding projects for global and domestic infrastructure and energy. I spoke to Senator Chuck Grassley earlier about whether these items of discovery would eventually make their way as part of a criminal probe by the Justice Department.
But it's led us to a point where both Hunter Biden and James Biden have close relationships with Chinese business people that in turn have close relationships or are members of the Communist Party and even tied to the military. And so when there's somebody in the Biden family and we have a President Biden, it's concerning to me whether or not this could compromise our national security to any extent.
Grassley also revealed this LLC agreement showing monthly retainer fees for Hunter Biden and James Biden totaling $165,000 per month and money that was connected to Hudson West 3 and CEFC, two companies again tied to the Communist Party. The revelations and years of work vindication for Senator Grassley, whose claims initially were largely dismissed.
For 2 years, the Democrats and the news media in this town were questioning my competence as a person that's done 40 years of congressional oversight to make sure that our laws are faithfully executed. And for 2 years, they said this was Russian disinformation.
More than 150 of these transactions have been flagged by U.S. banks as concerning and are thought to be part of a probe by the U.S. Attorney General of Delaware into potential violations by Hunter Biden into tax and foreign lobbying. Sean, Lindsay.
Kilmany, thank you very much. You may recall Hunter Biden was dubbed No Experience Hunter after he cashed in on foreign business dealings with Ukraine and Chinese energy companies. Well, his dad was the vice president, but he's not the only member of Biden Inc. cashing in on the family name. In my book, Radical Nation, I actually have a chapter called Biden Inc. about how Joe Biden's no-experience brother, Jim, became Joe's Senate campaign finance chairman and then suddenly an entrepreneur. After Jim skipped loan payments for his unsuccessful nightclub venture, then Senator Joe Biden blamed the bank that loaned him the money. And then in reality, guess what? They extended credit based on, well, just the Biden name. That's just the tip of the iceberg. Our next guests are dedicated to exposing Biden family corruption. Joining us now, the former New York Post deputy politics editor who brought us that infamous story in the New York Post that no one else would report, Emma Jo Morris. Emma Jo is now the politics editor at Breitbart, and joining her is co-author of the brand new book Fallout, the associate director of the research at the Government Accountability Institute, Seamus Bruner. Good to see you both. Emma Jo, first of all, wow, you've got to feel vindicated these days. The media, though, keeps saying that President Biden isn't involved in anything that Hunter or Jim does, but the laptop seems to indicate otherwise. Nothing so far has been proven untrue that we've seen. Not to say that it won't. Not a text, not an email. So how many times is Biden implicated via these emails or texts on the laptop that Joe Biden has done something, or that Joe Biden is the so-called big guy that payments are supposed to go to?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I mean, that's right. So that was a mouthful. I actually wrote a column today that's published on Breitbart News about the fact that the media is doing this really weird thing where they are admitting that the laptop is authentic, that I reported on almost 2 years ago now, a year and a half ago. but they're distinguishing the laptop being authentic from what's on it. Because when you look on it, and that leads to the second part of your question, there's a litany of things that involve Joe Biden that directly involve him. For instance, most recently that was reported by Fox News was that Joe Biden wrote a recommendation letter for a university for one of the sons of the partners of Hunter Biden, a Chinese partner, Jonathan Lee. Another instance where Joe Biden was involved was bringing Hunter on Air Force Two to China with him on a trip as VP. Another time when Hunter Biden tells his daughter, unlike Pop, I won't make you give me half your salary. Another acknowledgement that Joe Biden is deeply involved in what's going on in their financial interests. He met Ukrainian business partners, which I reported in my original reporting for the New York Post. Tony Bobulinski came forward to say that he met Joe Biden as part of the CEFC deal. I mean, Joe Biden is all over this. So for the media to say, the laptop is authentic, but then to stop short of admitting Joe Biden's involvement all over all of Hunter's stuff is just ridiculous.
Seamus, as our congressional correspondent pointed out, Senators Grassley and Johnson are digging into 150 business transactions that have been flagged by the U.S. bank between Hunter and Jim Biden and the banks connected to a Chinese Communist Party. You've detailed Hunter's concerning ties to Ukraine. Are there other things that you think the media is ignoring?
Yeah, well, absolutely. They're ignoring, obviously, the drug use and all of the prostitution and other unsavory things. We follow the money and we focus on the foreign deals, but the laptop is full of crimes. I mean, on video crimes. And so I think the media is engaging in a CYA journalism. They're covering their behinds because I think they sense the prosecutors are moving forward. And so they need to put out markers that they have covered this story so that down the line they can say, oh, no, we're not dishonest journalists. We covered this story. But like Emma Jo said, they're doing this really strange thing where they're trying to dispute the very obvious prima facie crimes that are on the laptop. So it's unsettling, but it's not surprising.
So, Emma Jo, I want to play you a staff writer at The Atlantic, who used to be at The Washington Post, was asked about the laptop at a conference on disinformation. Take a look to listen to her response.
My problem with Hunter Biden's laptop is I think it's totally irrelevant. I mean, it's not whether it's disinformation or, I don't think the Hunter Biden's business relationships have anything to do with who should be president of the United States. So I don't find it to be interesting.
So, Emma, don't you think this is the problem, right? The media is sort of trying to make this, and I saw Ruth Marcus from the Washington Post make a similar argument on one of the Sunday shows a while ago. They're missing the point. It's not about Hunter Biden's summer jobs or something. This is about whether or not it's directly connected to the president of the United States and whether or not he was getting something as well, correct?
Yeah, of course. And that is just such a... listen, you have to give this woman credit because originally on October 15th, the day after that we published the first few stories on Hunter, we started on October 14th, she tweeted that it was, quote, fraudulent, that the report was fraudulent, whatever that's supposed to mean. So she is coming a long way from going from it's outright made up or something to now it's just not newsworthy. So I give her credit for that, but she's playing the exact same game as Dan Abrams is playing as on MSNBC and the other pundit Frank Figliuzzi or whatever, the former FBI guy, who have both come out on NBC News to say that the laptop may be real, but there's no evidence of Joe Biden's involvement. They're all playing the same word game where they parse words and they try to make a distinction between the laptop and its contents. It's ridiculous, but they do it on the premise that nobody is going to call them out. She was sitting on a panel with David Axelrod where she made that statement, and she knows that they're all on the same team, and they're also on the same team as Joe Biden and the Democratic Party. So they kind of say what they want, and that's where we come in to call them out and why alternative and right-wing media exists because of this exact instance.
Seamus, your colleague Peter Schweitzer, who we've had on the show, seems to think that a Hunter Biden indictment is imminent over tax fraud. Do you think that this lets him off lightly, knowing what you've seen on the laptop?
Yeah, absolutely. It lets him off lightly. There's the foreign influence peddling. We know about FARA now. They sent Paul Manafort to Rikers over foreign influence peddling. Hunter Biden engages in that years on end on a daily basis. He's working with entities very closely tied to the Chinese government, if not working on behalf of the Chinese government. And then he goes and talks to his father and, gets favors done. He introduces his Chinese business associates to the White House. He gets them meetings at the White House. This is textbook FARA violations. Then of course, there's potential bribery, potential conflicts of interest. I think the tax evasion or tax avoidance, whatever he's up to, definitely lets him off lightly.
Yeah. Hopefully, we haven't seen the end of this story. I appreciate both of you, what you've done for this story and your tenacity in continuing to follow it. So, Emma Jo, Morris, thank you for having the bravery, frankly, to follow this story and to print it in October of 2020 and to stay on it. Seamus, thank you and all the work that the Government Accountability Institute does. I appreciate you both being here.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sean.